Today we're going to be talking about my 3 favorite ways to target halibut. My name is Benji. Thank you so much for clicking on this channel. One of my main goals is just to help you catch more fish, and one of the favorite things that I like to say is if I can catch a fish, you can catch a fish. So let's jump right into it. The first technique is my absolute favorite way of targeting halibut, and if you've seen any of my videos, you guys already know that's with the Lucky Craft Flash Minnow 110. I like to pair that up with the Phoenix Trifecta Light 903. I have the Daiwa Certate 4000, and some people have made comments about how expensive this reel is. If you're just getting started, don't feel like you have to get an expensive reel. You really don't. Regardless of what rod or reel you go with, just make sure that they pair together well. I'll link another video in the description in terms of how to choose your best rod and reel. You can check that video out after this one. But for now, we want to talk about how I rig the Lucky Craft. And I love throwing the Lucky Craft, not just because it catches a lot of fish for me and I found it to be extremely effective. Another reason why I love throwing the Lucky Craft is it's so simple. And a lot of times when I'm targeting halibut, this is the only rod and reel that I take out with me. I take 2 to 3 Lucky Crafts with me, and the only thing I need with the LC is a 50-pound tactical angler's clip tied to my leader, 15-pound fluorocarbon leader. I use 20-pound braid bracking, a 15-pound fluorocarbon leader, and I use a Palomar knot to attach the 50-pound tactical angler's clip. And all that's gonna do is help you swap out lures really quickly, and it just helps with efficiency when you're out in the water. So what I like to do the night before I'm gonna go fishing, or before I head out, I like to tie my leader beforehand, tie on the tactical angler's clip. And if you have a brand new Lucky Craft, you'll notice that the split ring here is taken off. I like to take these off. You don't need to put a split ring onto a clip, but regardless of, I take the split ring off, and when I get to the beach, I clip on, that's it. No tying leaders, no tying egg sinkers with beads or anything like that. This is all you need. It's super simple and efficient. I love the simplicity along with the effectiveness of this lure. The Lucky Craft Flash Minnow has an incredible back and forth wobble. It's really tight. You can also throw the Lucky Craft Flash Minnow 115, which is also extremely effective, but it has a wider action to it. I like the 110. If you're pairing up with the right rod and reel, you can throw this a country mile. A 50 to 60 to maybe even a 70-yard cast is not out of the question if you're using the right line and rod and reel for launching this thing. And when it comes to the Lucky Craft, I get a lot of questions in terms of how to get bit, and there is a little bit of a learning curve. In all of its simplicity, all you need to do with the Lucky Craft is cast and reel it in. It's just casting, feeling your line, and you really want to be able to feel the vibration of the lure in your hands with the rod and reel. You really want to feel that wobble, and along with that, when you're feeling that wobble, you want it to go as slow as possible while it's still wobbling. If you're brand new and you think that you're going slow, try going slower. Another technique that I found to be incredibly effective for me with the Lucky Craft Flash Minnow 110 is after the cast, I like doing 2 pops up or 2 pops down depending on how deep the water is, and that really gets the lure swimming, and it starts that back and forth action. And I'll reel, and I'll jerk, pause, jerk, jerk, pause, jerk, pause, jerk, jerk, pause. And that's a really effective cadence when it comes to throwing any jerk bait, and the Lucky Craft Flash Minnow 110 is a jerk bait. It's a 1 to 2 foot diver, and it's only about 16.7 grams. And so it's a light lure, it's a suspending lure, and it's naturally buoyant in salt water. So if you're throwing out, especially in calm condition days, you can jerk, and every time you jerk, that LC is slashing in the water. And you jerk, jerk, it's slash, slash. And it pauses, slash. And I found a lot of times I get hit immediately after one of the jerks, and I'm paused and I get slammed. But more than anything, when it comes to getting bit with the Lucky Craft Flash Minnow 110 is just practice. Put some time into it, be committed to it, and believe in it and be confident. It's worked for me, and if it can work for me, I know it can work for you. I'm not a special fisherman. I'm just someone that's put a little bit of time in the water. Another tip that I'll say for the Lucky Craft is when you actually choose to go out, you want to kind of pay attention to the conditions. I'll link another video in terms of how to read the surf, as well as using a couple of surf apps on your iPhone or Android to know what the conditions are going to be like on any given day. The calmer the water, the better the Lucky Craft is. If it's a really rough water day, chances are I'm not going to be throwing the Lucky Craft. So that's another thing. You know, sometimes if you're a newcomer, you just go out into the ocean and you don't know what it's going to be like, and it's super rough. and you try throwing the Lucky Craft and you're like, man, this doesn't work, and you choose it on the right day, you can probably have the best day of your life. Next up is a technique that I'll have always as a secondary option. Some days I'll take out the Lucky Craft only, and other days when I have a little bit more time, I'll take out the Lucky Craft and I'll prepare a second rod, and that'll be with the Texas Rig. It's a weedless application. It might be the most weedless, snagless option for you in the surf, especially if you're fishing heavy structure, and if you're hunting halibut, that's probably the structure that you want to be targeting, and that's with the Texas Rig. There's many different ways to Texas Rig. You can use a bullet head, a bullet sinker. You can use a weighted swim bait hook. I really like this. It's the Warbait's neck breaker, and it's kind of been all the rage since they came out with it. It's really unique, and I really, really love this. And let me show you the head on here. It's attached to this split ring, and it provides that extra action. This is a 1/2 ounce Warbait's neck breaker, and it's attached to a 4/0 extra wide gap hook, which allows you to tie this thing weedless. As you see with this little fluke, you can rig it weedless and you can dig it into the swim bait, and you're now weedless. So with the fluke tied on, you can cast that out, let it sink to the bottom, and you can just hop that fluke in. And what you're gonna be doing is you're gonna be bouncing it off the bottom, and that fluke is gonna be jumping and dropping down and fluttering down, and that tail is gonna be fluttering on the way, and it's gonna be a very effective way to get bit. And probably the more common way to rig the Texas Rig with the extra wide gap hook is with something like a paddle tail swim bait. And this is I think it's a 3.75 or 4-inch swim bait from my good friend Josh of Big Lout Baits. It's ribbed, and that can be very effective too when you're tying weedless. Can be helpful for hook sets. So I want to show you really quickly how I like to rig the Texas Rig and rig weedless. This is the swim bait. This right here, the inside, is the belly of the swim bait. This is the hook, and what you want to do is you want to insert to the top, and you want to quickly exit out of the bottom. And you want to leave very little space in that first exit. You're going to pull the swim bait all the way through, and then when you get to the other side, you want to turn the swim bait around until you have the hook turned around facing the bottom of the swim bait. Now at this point, what you want to do is you want to line up the bottom of the hook of where it's going to enter and exit the swim bait. You want to mark it with your finger, and what you want to do is you want to hold that spot because that's where you want the hook point to exit. And you're going to fold it up, hold it, go through, and come out the other side. And then with the hook on top, you can use the ribbed portion of the swim bait to dig the hook through, and it's still going to be weedless, so that can be very advantageous. With this, you can cast out into heavy structure and be confident that you're not going to be hung up, and that in dirty water, you can still be able to swim this with relative ease. Straight retrieve works very well, and you can experiment where in the water column you want to swim this. You could do a straight retrieve, you can retrieve and pause, you can pop it off the bottom, you can bounce this off the bottom just like with the fluke, and you can vary the cadence. Cadence seems to be very important when getting bit with the Texas Rig, and for me, slower the better, especially with these halibut. Just get it into their face and swim this thing as slow as possible. Seems to be very effective for getting bit. Really effective technique, and something that I always keep. A lot of people find this to be the #1 option and their confidence bait. My confidence bait is with the Lucky Craft Flash Minnow 110. My recommendation to you is find out what you get confidence in, because what gives me confidence and what gives someone else confidence might not be what gives you confidence. Lastly, in my opinion, this might be, in my opinion, the easiest and most effective way to catch halibut up and down the Southern California surf, and that's the drop shot. It's an incredibly effective way, and I'm gonna explain to you in a little bit why it's so effective and why I so highly recommend it, especially if you're brand new to surf fishing and brand new to targeting halibut. I wanna show you exactly how I like to rig up the drop shot, and there's different ways to do it, but I'm going to show you how I like to do it. First off, there's 2 different hook styles that you can use. If you're fishing really clean water and sandy beaches where there's not that much structure, I like using a size 2 owner mosquito hook. And what I like to do is with the mosquito hook, I like to nose hook the bait. I just really like that. It's kind of mimicking the way we like to hook the drop shot swim baits when we're fishing freshwater largemouth bass. When it's clean water, I like using the size 2 owner mosquito. However, if you're fishing heavy structure, or you really need a weedless application, you're fishing dirtier water and you just want that protection, you can still rig the drop shot, but you want to use an EWG hook. And these are Gamakatsu, either 3.0 or 4.0, depending on the size of your swim bait. But right now I want to show you how I like to tie the drop shot. It's really, really easy. You got my leader. This is my 15-pound leader line set up to my rod, the Phoenix 90, the Trifecta 904 with my Daiwa Fuego 3000. That's my Carolina rig. I can also use this exact same setup to throw the drop shot. What you want to do is this is very, very important. You want to have the hook upside down like this. You don't want the hook down like this, because if you go down this way, the hook's going to be facing down. You want the hook to be facing up so that your swim bait can be right side up, if that makes any sense. You want to shoot the leader line straight down through the eye. And then right now with this, you're going to determine how high you want this to be up, because your sinker is going to be on the bottom. And so you want to determine how high you want it to be, and we're going to be tying a Palomar knot. So we're going to be a little bit liberal with how long we want this section to be, because we can always make it shorter if need be. And then from there, you're going to take the leader and you're going to bring it right back through the eye, and you're going to create this loop. And then the Palomar knot is you want to take this loop and we're going to tie an overhand knot. Right over, overhand knot, and then we want to take this through the hook, through that loop. Wet, cinch down, and that's your Palomar knot. Now, this is also very, very important. Now you have the Palomar knot, but what you want to do is with the end of your leader, this is going to be the bottom, you want to loop back around and you're going to come back from the top through the bottom like so, and that's going to ensure that your hook is going to be straight. Okay, so that's going to be the hook. And then I like using a 1-ounce torpedo. I like using a 1-ounce torpedo like so. You can tie like a dropper loop setting and you can kind of loop it around that way. I just tie a really horrible cinch knot on purpose. So I just go around here. I don't even use the improved cinch knot. I go around maybe 4 times. And I go around and I purposely tie a pour knot that's gonna hold. However, if this gets snagged, this is not the best knot in the world, and I believe that it's gonna just come right off, just like that. And so that way, if I get snagged, I lose the weight, but I still have my hook tied on. From this, you can tie, again, similar to the Texas Rig weedless, you can go with the fluke. This is a Gulp fluke, white fluke, and white seems to be a very effective color. The reason why I say the drop shot might be the most effective way to target halibut or any fish from the surf, especially for a newcomer, is because you're able to keep your lure in the strike zone of the water column 100% of the time. The only thing that you need to experiment with is where the strike zone is. Halibut are obviously on the bottom looking up, so you don't want it to be too high off. You want it to be a little bit closer to where the weight is so that they can see it and come up and strike it easily. But this is why it's so forgiving for newcomers. You don't have to know where your lure is in the water column when you're retrieving it. It's always there in the same spot 100% of the time. And all you need to do with the drop shot is twitch. And you can dead stick it. What I mean by dead sticking is just not doing anything. It's just keeping tension on your line, making sure that your line is not bowed out, that it's straight. And you just pause, you can twitch, and just wait a few seconds, reel in some slack really slowly, twitch, reel in some slack. And all that's happening with this fluke is it's sitting there in the strike zone, and while you're twitching, it's just bouncing. And it's fluttering, and this, when it's not dried out, is fluttering and bouncing, tantalizing, hopefully in the face of a halibut. I believe that if you get this presentation into the face of a halibut, chances of you getting bit is very, very high. I recommend these paddle tails, so either a paddle tail or fluke style. And I already mentioned, this is from my friend Josh, Big Lout Baits. If you're using the paddle tail, you just want to do a slow retrieve. And you can pause, slow retrieve. And you just want to cast and bring this thing in. When you're doing that, it just looks like a bait fish that's swimming in the water. It's a little bit more active. You're always retrieving, mixing in a few pauses. That's all there is to it. When you feel a bite, you're gonna feel your line stop. Remember, when it's a weedless presentation, you probably need to set the hook a little harder in order to get that hook point out of the swim bait and into the halibut's mouth. That's a drop shot technique. I found it to be a very effective technique. If you're fishing cleaner water, the drop shot should be something that's in your arsenal probably most of the time. So I hope you found that helpful. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you want to learn more about how to read the beach, check out this video. Thanks so much, and until the next one, tight lines.